So it is my great pleasure to introduce people involved in our closing session. Very special group of leaders who represent all facets of our global-minded inclusive community. It's my great honor to introduce Dr. Raheem Beyah, Dean of the College of Engineering at Georgia Tech, and an undergraduate from North Carolina A&T in EE, and former faculty member of Georgia State University, all of whom are in the house. So it's kind of exciting to see the footprints of all the different people here. And Dean Beyah, we are honored to work with you and the incredible team at Georgia Tech. And thanks to you and Omid for hosting us, and would love to have you come up and give us your insights as we get ready to introduce from a number of perspectives our interviewer and speaker. Dr. Beyah, come on up.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Doing all right? Yeah? Yeah, all right, good. Carol, thanks for that warm introduction. They gave me 3 minutes, I think, so I think I'm going to use 3.5. We'll see. I'm still a college professor, and professors and preachers, they don't really listen to instructions about length. I tell you, this is probably, I've introduced tons and tons of folks throughout my career, and I tell you, this is the one that I am by far the most excited to do, to introduce Mike Render. Today, I have the opportunity to introduce someone that you all know as Killer Mike, but I simply know him as Big Mike, as Mike. Someone that you guys know as a Grammy Award-winning artist and songwriter, a business owner, an advocate for the disenfranchised. So I know him with that too. But also, for me, he's a former neighbor, a friend of over 35 years with whom I used to regularly walk to school. Many of you were first made aware of Mike's political activism when he helped the candidate campaign for a previous presidential election, and when he helped our former mayor, Keisha Lance Bottoms, also from Douglas High School. But I have seen this activism with Mike on stage at Douglas High School decades ago, where he was pushing us, encouraging us to see more in the dream and to do more than what we actually saw in our immediate vicinity. He's been doing this. This ain't new. Y'all just now seeing it. But this is who he is. Since the senseless killing of Takeoff, a member of Migos, many have been calling for the violence to stop, which absolutely, it's ridiculous. It is senseless, particularly among Black-on-Black crime. Mike has not only been talking about this, he again has lived this. And so Mike, when we were in high school, he was the chief fight breaker-upper. And, I'm telling you, he would be, I remember seeing Mike, this is true. So Douglas is 4 stories high. I saw Mike in the basement one time, the basement level, and he was heading in one direction, so like out of the school. I make it up there on my way to class, 3rd floor, and then the fight breaks out. I mean, I don't know if it was like a bat sign or something that popped up. Next thing you know, Mike has appeared, and he's breaking up fights between 2 of the rival neighborhoods, Bowen Home, Dixie Hill, folks that just hated each other, right? And so my point to you is that you got lots of folks in a number of different areas that are starting to talk about it and tweet about it. Mike has done this and lived this his entire life, right? And so, I told my wife I wasn't going to go deep into this, and I won't. But as you be careful as you, and I get on the Twitter piece, but as you see folks take clips and pictures, and they draw different conclusions from them, folks that don't even know any folks like Mike or any sort of celebrity, it's like, man, I've known this dude his entire life, and I know who he is and what he stands for. And it's just amazing, and I'm so proud of my brother. So although where we grew up, it was rough. It was, it was pretty rough. And, our elders and teachers were pushing us forward, but we had we had society that was fighting against us. And we had, in our neighborhood liquor stores where the average, where the drinking age was 15. If you're 15, you're good. Now you can't be 14 now. We got to have some standards, but you 15, come on, get some of this Mad Dog. Old English. I was not there, of course. They told me stories about this. We had dope houses, down the street. I mean, we went to school with, one of the biggest dope dealers, his son, for our entire career, most of the time in high school and elementary school. And so we really were not supposed to make it out. And, but we had, my wife likes to say we had busy angels. And I love Mike's latest single run. And I love the quote that we were blessed to make it out the slump. Like, this is real. This is not something he made up and he's reading about. Like, this is real. This is his life, right? And I love it. And when I leave here, that's when we'll be rocking Run by Mike. So I'll wrap it up and tell you, I remember when Mike got his first, I think in first big break, I was at Run and Shoot. You might not remember the story. And we were Run and Shoot working out, and it used to be a place where you work out. And it's funny, it's also in a really rough neighborhood. We used to call it Shoot and Run. But we'd go and work out. And I remember walking in, and Mike was walking out. He was like, "Yo, man, I got this. I'm on this. I'm working with Outkast, man. And I'm on this track. Whole world, you got to check it out." And I'm like, "What? That's what's up, dude." And then sure enough, I mean, he went in, of course, like he does with everything, just killed the track, killed it. And I'm like, wow, this is my dude. And I remember him being so excited. And that was, at least for me, the public version of Mike beginning to take off and be extremely successful. And things really just took off. And so Mike has been he's a solo artist. He's collaborated with folks like Jay-Z and Outkast and Big Boy and T.I. and Bone Crush and everybody else. He's a part of the hip hop super duo Run the Jewels. And they released 4 studio albums. But of course, knowing Mike, that's not enough. Mike has to do more. And so he has, in addition to being a musician, wide recognition beyond the industry. He's been in tons of, lots of films, from Baby Driver to Idlewild to ATL. I just recently tweeted, Ozark. Mike's up in Ozark. I'm like, man, what in this world? Oh, how you get up in Ozark, dude? I mean, just killing it. And I know, many of you are familiar with Netflix Trigger Warning, feature Killer Mike, and he has a show on WAP. I mean, like, I don't know when you sleep, brother, but I am so proud to welcome to the stage my good friend, my brother, somebody I admire, Mike Arender, Big Mike, Killer Mike. Okay, so we're not there. I got my man next. All right. And while you're coming up, I want to make sure that we introduce one of Mike's biggest fans, Rontavious Coley. He's a 2022 graduate of Georgia Highlands, who became an entrepreneur and has fiercely pursued his passion, shoes. Of course, I had to look at his shoes to make sure that was true. Rontavious, come on up, man. All right.
All right, how y'all doing today? All right. First of all, I want to thank GlobalMindED for having me, and I especially want to thank Carol for giving me the opportunity to rock some J's with my suit. Now I feel like I'm at home right now. So my name is Rontavious Coley. I'm 27 years old, graduate from Georgia Highlands College, and like he said, I'm a business owner. Mike a little short, man. Put it up a little bit. I'm a business owner. I own a store in Rome, Georgia called The Early Way on Broad. And it's a sneaker boutique that specializes in everything from clothes, shoes to vintage Louis bags. But with me saying that, I'm the youngest business owner on Broad Street, and I'm the only Black business that's on my street. So the statistics say I shouldn't even be here at all. So you hear my name, Rontavious, and that's like the best and worst thing that ever happened to me, because I got people judging me, have preconceived notions of my name. you know, they think I'm just a stereotypical black guy with a name like that. But when they hear about what I do and what I've done and what I'm continuing to do in my community, that the name gets thrown out the window, you know? So, and I love to tell people my name is Rontavious. I mean, I go by Tay too, but I like to put that out there so people will know, like, just because my name is this and I'm this, I'm something that you won't ever think I am. So, just like Michael Render, I was raised by my grandmother in a single parent home. I lived in over 5 projects ranging from, I used to live in Pool Creek in Atlanta all the way to Rome, Georgia. So I've been in and out of the projects my whole life. I never met my father, and my mother had me when she was 15. So she was a baby having a baby, so she didn't even get to raise me. So my grandmother stepped in and filled that void. I would like to say I overcame everything by myself, but that'd be a lie because I was blessed to have multiple mentors and opportunities that were presented in front of me to actually get out the projects and do some action in my community. My mentor, he's in the audience right now. You raise your hand, John Hershey. His last name Hershey, but he a white guy. But he was the first guy person to believe in me and give me an opportunity. He's been my mentor for going on 20 years next year. And he introduced me to GlobalMindED in 2018. Actually, I got to go to my first conference in Denver, which in 2018, that's the first time I ever got on the plane. So I was very grateful for that. In 2019, with the Brother to Brother program that he runs in game, I got to go to Africa with a study abroad trip. And that trip really, I would say, put me in a position where I'm at today because it changed my outlook on life. Also, in 2020, I got to be one of 25 students in a virtual conference for GlobalMindED. And I got an opportunity to speak on a panel about, 2020 during COVID, all the social issues that were going on. And I got to voice what was going on with me and the stuff that I've been through. Also, I like to say how I had the 100 Black Men of Northwest Georgia. They were big role models in my community. It was a guy named Greg Schropser. He would have been here, but he just recently passed away. And don't be sad because he don't like that. But he was a big help in my life also. GlobalMindED understands that students like me, first generation students, need a team behind them. And that is why we are all here today, to find out how we can work together. My grandmother always said it takes a village, and we are all a village working together to collectively help minorities and other college students bridge that gap once they graduate and get these jobs that they deserve, not that they need, but they deserve these jobs because they put in the work. I'm just an example of somebody going out on a limb, and after I, got the accolades, taking a chance, because nobody's in my family owns a business, but I wanted to do that and be the first stepping stone so my brothers and sisters and their nieces and nephews can, practice entrepreneurship themselves. So back to the guy that we're here to see today, Mr. Michael Render. I hope one day, we can connect and work on like a program or something to help guys like myself excel in life and progress in our communities. But now I would like to introduce Dr. Gene Accius, Senior Vice President of Global Thought Leadership in AARP. Thank you.
Give him a round of applause, everybody. Good afternoon. Can everyone hear me? Rontavious, thank you so much. Now I have the great honor of introducing Michael Render to the stage. We can do better than that. Michael and I were just talking, and he offered to give me his kicks after this. So I'm really excited. But first of all, Michael, it's so nice to see you.
I'm happy to be here. Hello, everybody.
And we also have a virtual audience as well.
Hey, hi, everybody. I'm glad they got that on tape. I Usually you're dead when people talk that good about you. You're laying right there in the front. You can't hear any of it.
So we're going to have a candid conversation. And I really want to kind of start off with where Rontavious left off, because I thought that it was very interesting that Rontavious was raised by his grandmother. I was raised by my grandmother for the first 4 years of my life. And you were raised by your grandmother and grandfather in Atlanta.
By my grandparents.
Your grandparents.
Yeah, I always stress that because it was very abnormal when I was growing up to be raised by your grandparents. But the benefit was that I was in a two-parent household. My parents were teenagers. Thank God they were wise enough to know they shouldn't be raising me. So I got raised by people who grew up in 1922 and 1932.
Wow.
And that's an interesting mix when you were born in 75. So I got a lot of honesty. Before Dean Beyah, we call him Raheem. I remember when he first moved in the neighborhood. And when he first moved in the neighborhood, the woman who had owned the house before his mom was a woman named Miss Price. And she used to babysit me when I was a kid. So imagine this little chubby kid, this little skinny, beautiful browning woman. You know how as Black women get older, their skin just has this beautiful sheen about it. Even if it cracks, it looks like beautiful leather worn. Man, she'd be chasing this little fat child around her house, trying to get him to do what she wanted. And it just got to the point I'd throw myself out and she'd almost fall too. So they had to put me in Harrington Daycare Center. And God bless the dead, Miss Harrington, Miss Harrington died this year, but her focus was making sure you went into kindergarten a reader. And I'm just giving you some description because I want you to understand that even though we were growing up in the midst of the crack era and wild times, I had a two-parent household. I grew up in a neighborhood called the Collier Heights, which was started by Black people, for Black people in 1946. Some of my neighbors were the Russell family, someone who would go on to become Dean Beyah. Dr. Harris, who was a psychologist or psychiatrist here, her daughter, who is now Zwayla Harris, a doctor as well. Some of the most prominent Black people from working class folks all the way to the top of Atlanta made sure that this was a neighborhood in which my rural was totally Black. It had Black Muslims, it had Black Christians, it had Black Catholics and Protestants who would argue over which version of Christianity was better. It had Black Hebrews, and just had this mix of people where confidence was stoked at every turn. At every turn, confidence was given. And when I give people examples of the greatness I grew up with, I include Dean Beyah, I include Judge Asha Jackson of Superior Court, I include Dr. Tarshell Peoples, I include Dr. Harris, Zwayla Harris, I include Cameron Dollar, who won a 1995 NCAA championship, my best friends from kindergarten, Robert Hicks, who played for the Bills. Such a plethora of greatness was around me. When you're growing up next to him as a kid and he's smarter than you in the 7th grade and he's like in the 4th, you're like, shit, I got to find something to be good at. So what I learned very early from those two people was find something you're good at and be better at it and get better at it, whether it's reading, whether it's writing, whether it's running, but find something that you're passionate about. So I'm thankful for those two people who raised me because I didn't grow up with a lot of insecurities. I grew up with a lot of confidence. And I believe if you inject Black children or any child with enough confidence, the competence will come. Like Frederick Douglass said, you know, it is easier to build strong children than to repair broken men.
Wow, wow, wow. Yeah. I want to pick up on something that you just mentioned. And you said that, you know, is to find something and to work at it. Can you say a little bit more about that commitment, that dedication, that sacrifice?
All right. So once I knew I wasn't as smart as math as this kid, and I knew I couldn't run as fast as most of my friends, I was like, this breakdancing thing might be for me. But I couldn't hit the backspin. But I realized that if I could talk pretty good, people like listening to me. And I realized I could rhyme words. And if I could put together raps, then the older kids will let me hang out a little longer. So rap became my thing. And I wanted to be as good at rapping as Raheem was in math, as Robert was in football, as Asha was in social sciences. And I went about it with a passion. I remember telling Miss Ely in the 4th grade, I want to be a rapper. And her saying to me, you're much too smart. You should be an airplane pilot. So at 15, I got an opportunity from Mr. Jim Berto at George High School to join a summer program in which they would teach you aviation mechanics and how to fly a plane. Because I accepted that challenge from Ms. Ely at about 9, at 15, I went and learned how to fly planes. And I still like planes a lot. And then I went back and told Ms. Ely, man, that was really fun, but I still want to be a rapper. But I understood at that moment that accepting a challenge didn't take you away from your passion and what you wanted to do. And it actually grew you. So as much as I wanted to be a rapper, the determined and the dogged determination came from accepting challenges all along the way. Accepting Ms. Ely's challenge, accepting my grandmother's challenge, who thought I should go to Tuskegee University and be a lawyer instead. Accepting my dad's challenge, who said, you know, they call it starving artist for a reason. And I use that as a chip on my shoulder to show my dad, who really was only telling me years later that I see you as a leader. And I remember, I'll never forget, there was a magazine or a newspaper article that essentially said that Michael Render is a leader. And he called me and said, I didn't mean to offend you or to say I was doubting you when I told you that when you were telling me you were dropping out of Morehouse. And when he said that to me, I realized how stupid a thing that was to say to your father. I'm gonna leave Morehouse and become a rapper. And this man was supposed to be like, yeah. And we cried on the phone because he said, I just saw you as a leader. He said, I would leave you in a room full of children at that nursery that was on, that we sent you to, and that made sure you could read before you got into kindergarten. And when I came back in that room, you would be telling the kids, this is what we're going to do. Wow. And that little boy never unbecame himself. He was that little boy and the slowest kid in class running around the field at 12. He was that little boy at 16 years old that was breaking up fights, because I once was a fight starter. And then I realized, well, this is dumb. You know, eventually I'm going to lose bad.
But Michael, let me ask you a question, because you accepted those challenges.
Yes.
And we had a panel earlier today, and there was someone on the panel that said, you know, whenever you were given an opportunity,
Yes.
you say yes.
Yes.
So my question for you and for all the students here, you could have easily said, you know what, Miss Ely, you're right. I'm going to totally forget about being a rapper. But you were determined.
Yeah.
So what advice do you have for all leaders who are here, who are on this journey of trying to become better, whatever that better is for them, in terms of exactly what their dreams and aspirations are? And when they get that challenge, to either accept it, but not to be discouraged by it.
Yeah, I mean, better is relative to you. Like, you're competing with you. And, you know, a lot of other stuff that people get to say on Oprah. But you got to get up every morning. You got to look in that mirror. And you just got to say, I know this is for me. You know, I wanted to be a break dancer. Better, more than anything in the world. I wanted to. But this wouldn't let me. So I had to figure out a way to be a part of this cultural explosion of art called hip hop that I wanted so desperately to be a part of. And I figured it out. But what I didn't do was I didn't let me talk me out of it. I accepted it's going to be difficult. I'm from Atlanta. I'm not from New York. There were no record companies in Atlanta. I'm 47 years old. Hip hop is only 50. I had no idea how to achieve it. But I knew if I was stubborn and consistent about it, it would happen. Or I felt that way. I believed with a child's belief system. I have a theory that you should never let the 12-year-old in you die. There's a 12-year-old young lady in you guys, and she made some decisions at 12. And you are fulfilling some of those decisions now. Man, there is a 12-year-old boy who still argues over the Hawks and the Falcons and the Braves or the Bulls or the Giants, whoever you cheer. And when you get with your friends, your significant others get a chance to see the stupidity of that. If you see me and Dr. Beyah away from y'all, y'all see a whole new set of kids. Y'all see the two kids that listen to Too Short together for the first time. Imagine our moms walking in on that. But all these things were culminations of a child's belief that the possibility is there. And I need you to believe like a child. A child's imagination does not allow room for disbelief. Once that child says a unicorn is flying out of the ceiling, you'll stand there and be like, it's a beautiful blue unicorn. It's black. Yeah, it's black. You get convinced. You suspend disbelief. And I think that once you suspend self-doubt and disbelief, once you release anxiety, once you don't dwell in regret, the opportunity to succeed is endless. Now, what the success looks like, you don't always get to pick. Like, I wanted to be a rapper who got a Grammy, who made a bunch of money, and who sold 10 million records like Nelly. I was a rapper that won a Grammy, made a little bit amount of money, never sold 10 million records like Nelly. 10 years after my first record, something happened in my career and it exploded. In the last 10 years, I've become a business owner, multimillionaire rapper, Grammy nominated. We got robbed a few times. And my career has taken a pathway that I didn't predict, but I understood if I stayed on the path that the Creator had something for me. The universe does not make a mistake. And even though it didn't happen in the way I thought it would happen, because I was consistent and pure of heart, because I believed like a child, I got a version of what I was going for. And when I got that version, I wasn't picky. I didn't say, God, but it didn't happen like this. I was thankful and I was grateful that grace had been extended to me. And I tried to remain grateful every day and understand that grace is being extended to me, because I am not here simply by my own merit.
So this part of the theme for this is resolve to solve.
Yes.
And there's so many issues that we need to solve.
Yes.
And in addition to being an amazing, successful artist,
Yes.
in addition to being a powerful business leader,
Yes.
in addition to being a major mentor to many, you're also an activist.
Yeah.
And I guess my question for you, Michael, when you see what's going on in our world today, when you see some of the issues, particularly around the racial unrest,
Yeah.
the inequities, how do we start to look at these issues from the lens of our interconnectivity?
Yeah.
Rather than us versus them, or we have to solve their quote unquote problems, this narrative.
Yeah. Well, who are we connected to is a big part of it. Like, one thing I encourage people to do is very easy, but it's not uncomplex, is befriend someone who doesn't look like you, who is not where you're from, who is not culturally like you or religiously like you or even of the same sex. Befriend someone it's hard to be friends with too sometimes. Not someone that's terribly toxic, but we don't understand sometimes. You know, when I talk to some of my friends who don't look like me or aren't where I'm from, it can be easy to feel as though you're carrying the weight of your whole community on your back. But no, you're just my friend and you're just being an asshole. And our friendship allows me that. So the better I know my friend as an individual, the less I judge people that look like my friend, that are from where my friend is from, the more I understand the nuance of my friend and where my friends are from. And the more they get to understand from me, and they don't just have to call me after Black People Riot to say, what should I do? Where should I send my money to? Because more than money, we need a real connectivity. We need to be intertwined with one another individually and culturally. That doesn't mean you always have to move next to each other and you have to integrate every neighborhood. I have no problem with Koreatown or Chinatown or Little Odessas as I go there and I learn more about the culture I'm experiencing there. But there is something wrong if I don't have a Korean friend. There's something wrong if I do not have a friend that is not native to this country, even if it looks like that person looks like me. There's something wrong because it means I've never pushed out of my, and I'm speaking from experience. I grew up in an all-Black world. All my heroes and villains were Black. There were no white people in me and Mr. Beyah's neighborhood, except maybe someone who had a biracial marriage, a child, or had a marriage. One, actually Ron, my friend Ron. His mom was white, but we never seen her. But the only white people I saw were on television. I saw Fred Rogers, I saw Bob Ross, I saw people who were members of Sesame Street and things of that nature. And it allowed me to see the people that my grandmother and grandfather would be talking about, but we never saw. And dang, this is just a quick shout out to public television. You did a tremendous job at helping a young Black child in the 70s and 80s understand that people, like Fred Hampton was trying to help us understand, people are just people. The proletariat is the proletariat, and it's diverse as any tapestry our great grandmothers have sewn together. So, you know, for me, it's about connectivity. And once we connect now, we gotta start plotting, planning, strategizing, organizing, and mobilizing, because individual connection creates the fibers that create the rope. But the rope got to hold the anchor, and the anchor got to hold something still, or the rope got to pull something. And what we have to start doing then is organizing. What's best for us as individuals? What's best for our interconnectivity? What is best for our communities? North Fulton and South Fulton have to be organized in order to make a better Fulton. Republican and Democrat Atlanta or a state in Georgia have to work together. After an election, after you done finished calling your cousins names and you've said which rapper is worse or better, my friend was defending an article that was written. It was a very mean article that was written about me, but it was written by someone who doesn't know me. And it's not my business what that person thinks of me. It's my business that I carry on the work of my grandmother. She was amazing. She was mean as shit. Oh man, she was a Gemini. You never knew who you were waking up to.
Mike, I'm a Gemini.
God bless your soul. And God bless whoever loves you.
My wife is watching.
But we'd be in church all day. Oh man, these hot churches with these Martin Luther King fans. And you were convinced the preacher had a quota to meet or they weren't going to let you go. And after church, we go to Sadie Mae's retirement home and help people. She changed bed linens. She'd have us run errands because she felt people deserved to live, and if they were dying, with dignity. And she would drag me to these city council meetings and talk to city council people on behalf of her community. And if the sanitation wasn't picked up, she called the news, because that's the only way you got politicians to ping, their attention. You call the news. And she would tell her city council, I'm gonna call the news on your ass. I was like, who is the news? I was like, oh, you're talking about the news. But I learned that the most honorable thing you can be is a helper of those in need and a steward. And my grandmother just provided an amazing example. And my grandfather, who was probably more of a libertarian, although he identified with no party, he just didn't like government. He said, if God gave you an appetite and the good mind to make a fishing pole, nobody should be able to tax you to eat. And my grandmother would call from the back of the house, well, who gets to clean up the parks? Because she understood that the game ward need to be paid and the people who clean the parks. So I grew up between these two ideologies of people constantly arguing. With my grandfather, if we went and caught 50 fish, then 25 fish would be cleaned and cut and gutted and put in our freezer, and the other 25 would be separated in parcels of 3s and 5s to take to old people in our community who could no longer do for themselves. So I'm an activist because I'm compelled to be, because the people that raised me would think it honorable. I don't want to do this shit. I want to smoke weed and go to the blue flame. But I am compelled to do what Willie Burke Sherwood and Betty Cluntz would have me do.
And we thank you for that.
Absolutely.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. I had an opportunity a while back to talk with one of our good friends. She's the curator for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
And she said that music is a form of activism.
It is.
And the former late Congressman John Lewis mentioned in his book that each generation has music as a form to inspire.
Yes.
And during the civil rights movement, that was one of the things that sustained them.
Yes.
So if I were to ask you, given where we are and given the environment that we find ourselves in, to identify a song that you would say that is a song that inspires movement, one that is not yours, what would that song be and why?
What that inspired a movement for I would say Ice Cube's America's Most Wanted album changed my life. It was street, it was viscerally gutter, it was hyper intelligent and grounded in working class Black America. And it was the first time that I had heard a young Black man be that damn proud. Not that I hadn't read Malcolm or Martin or Elijah, not that I didn't know who Fred was. For my generation, O'Shea Jackson was proud. He was from a 2-parent household. His mom didn't trust rap and made him go to mechanical drafting school in Phoenix, Arizona. His rap group blew up while he was 18 learning how to draw circles. And he came back after leaving the group, went to New York and made an album. If you're a young man in this room and you want to know what it was like for your father to be 19 in the late 80s and early 90s, go listen to America's Most Wanted. If you are a young man in this room of color and you think that shit can't get no worse, go listen to that album and understand that shit has always been worse and you have always made shit into fuel. You have made manure out of cow shit, fuel cars. You've built buildings. You've built empires. You remember what the draft was like when Benjamin Banneker, you're Benjamin Banneker, when the guy who's designing DC left, you had it photographed. You are great. You are phenomenal. You are absolutely amazing. Your mother is a god. You came through the vessel of a god to be here. You cannot be anything less than royal. Everything about you is regal. And that's what that album made me feel like, in a pair of Dickies and Nikes. You know, this kid with a Jerry curl and a knitted cap was telling young Black men, you can do anything you want to. And then he showed us. He went out and made movies. He started a sports league. He's been married to the exact same woman for over 30 years. He has children. So in music and in real life, O'Shea Jackson has been an absolute hero to me. So I would encourage you all to not just listen to a song, but to put on America's Most Wanted as an album. And you should walk away with the same reverence as I walked away with, because it is an absolute testimonial for what it's like to be a young Black man in America.
Michael, we heard earlier that you're the chief fight breaker, right?
I fought a lot first.
We also heard, and I saw this clip where you talked about how you got your name.
Yeah.
Can you share with the audience how you got your name?
Yeah, I never, like, people say, oh, he should, yeah. Oh, when people criticize, it's hilarious. So go read some of the articles that criticize me. It's hilarious, right? He calls himself Killer Mike, but he talks about peace. And I'm like, Saul used to kill Christians, and then he became Paul. Jesus already said it's okay. A lot of the people that criticize me are just foolish and surface level. I would have been Handsome Mike. I would have been like Mike I Like a Lot Mike. Big Mike was appropriate. I got called Big Mike. But I got called Killer Mike because in a battle rap league, people were just, my friends just came in and kicked butt. And then they were like, we ain't coming no more. So I had 3 friends that were a rap group. And once they exited, everybody else got courageous. And my friends were gone and they was talking bad about my friends. And I'm just like, hold on, why didn't you guys say this? My friends were just here. And then I got angry. So I started battling the people who were talking bad about my friends. And about the 18th or 19th guy losing, this guy named Double D stands on something and says, this kid's killing y'all. Like, shut up. And D was like, he looked like Arnold Schwarzenegger with a, and we were like, well, nobody want to fight D, so we'll all just shut up. And he said, this kid is a killer. He's killing all y'all. And my name never was what it was before that day. After that, it just was, that's Killer. That's Killer Mike. So, and I always thank Double D for naming me that, because obviously it worked. I killed a few microphones. I won a Grammy, made a little money, did all right. So,
That's right. And it reminds me of Rontavious when he was talking about his
I love
name.
your name too, by the way, Rontavious.
Exactly.
It definitely says your mom was 15 and you were bound for success. My mother named me Michael Santiago. I do not look Afro-Latino at all. I don't just, I was like, you thought I was going to look exotic like my father, didn't you?
But I think it goes back to what you were saying earlier, not being defined by others.
No.
Having that deep anchored sense of confidence and self-worth.
Absolutely.
And you define what you want to define.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Let me ask you a question. We've been through a lot over the last 2.5 years, going on 3. What have you learned about yourself that you wish you knew, let's say, pre-pandemic?
Is that I wish I knew pre-pandemic? That my time matters more to my wife and children than my money. I grew up, Dean Beyah and I grew up we grew up in the working class section. Our little houses were 800-900 square feet. Now, our houses, in theory, in my theory, were built to buffer our neighborhood from the kids in the projects, in the worst neighborhoods. So we were always kind of stuck in the middle. Like if Bowen Holmes and Dixie Hill was fighting, I literally was in the middle breaking up the fight, but I had to walk to school with them. So if I didn't broker a peace agreement with Bowen Holmes and Dixie Hills, then somebody was going to say, well, he's on their side. Let's beat him up. But I'm sorry, I lost my thought.
No, go ahead.
What was the question?
So the question, go ahead.
No, go.
Yeah. So the question is, how do we, particularly, I'm going to switch it up.
Yeah.
How do we now, given your history, given the fact that you've defied all the odds, continue to persevere?
So to continue and persevere is this. And these are just a slight different questions, but continue to persevere is this. Understand that at all times, people are pouring into your cup. At all times, Black kids especially are in the room. Someone's trying to impart some wisdom to give you something because they've made the mistake. And if you sit still, like the stuff they charge you $65 an hour for in yoga, if you sit still and be quiet, it kind of comes to you. My grandfather talks to me every day. He tells me when you have to stand up and do this, because I hear his voice, it replays. And he tells me when to stay out of white folks' business. That ain't your business. Stay out of that. Concern yourself with your wife and children. This is what you asked when I was starting.
At the time.
Before COVID, I came home from shooting probably the biggest video of my rap group's life. I went to my friend's father's funeral. He and his father was like this. I came home and it was on my face for 2 weeks. I thought I was dying. My wife, who I convinced to drop out of nursing school and follow me around the globe as a rapper, used all the nursing skills she had to nurse me back to health. A month or 2 later, they named COVID and said what it was. We figured that's what I'd had. I was looking forward to making a few $1 million over the course of the next couple of years, and they were like, that's not happening. First year, not happening. Second year, we had to tighten and budget restrain. Not bad, just, nope, you won't be getting a Bentley. Your wife's getting a Range Rover, but you'll be driving that truck. And I stopped and sat still. Couldn't go anywhere to spend money, couldn't do anything. And all I had to give my wife and children was time. All I had to give the people I love, my sisters, who loved me so, they had cheered for me so, but had never gotten to be with me. I got to give them time. I got to give the people I loved and respected time. I got a chance to think about my mother, who died at the Cab Piedmont as I was on a plane trying to cross the Atlantic Ocean to get back on her. And all the money in that first class flight on that big Virgin plane, all the fame of the concerts I had just did, I would have traded for some time. So what I've learned out of that is that more precious than my money, more precious than fame, more precious than influence in my community and beyond. The most valuable thing I have to give anyone I love is my time. And it's one reason I'm here today on the call to Scott Carter and his sister, because he's someone that I met that doesn't look like me. It's not from the same cultural background. And he gave me his time, and I am honored to give him my time to be here with you all today, because this is the most precious thing in the world we can share with one another right now. Time and conversation. And I value it immensely and appreciate you all.
So, Michael, we have about less than 5 minutes.
Okay.
I could talk to you literally all day.
I got a barbershop. We're set up to do that. We just hang out and talk.
We'll go there after this. One of my favorite quotes is from Brian Stevenson. And Brian, for those who don't know, he's the president of the Equal Justice Initiative, wrote a book, Just Mercy. And in the book, he talks about that you cannot be an effective problem solver from a distance. There are nuances that you will miss unless you get close.
Yes.
And what he was basically saying is the fact that if we really want to serve, if we really want to solve some of these issues, we cannot be afraid to get close.
Yes.
So I guess as we wrap up, what is one of those quotes or sayings that really keeps you motivated to getting close, to continuing the fight, to try and address these equity issues?
Alice Johnson. I say certain people's names so they don't die. Alice Johnson was a white woman, curly red hair from North Chicago. She had been raised by a mother who was, just kind of like Archie Bunker. Mom was kind of reserved. She was like Edith, and dad had some issues with prejudice and racism, but she was raised Catholic. And so when she was told, you go out and do good in the world, she started doing it as a kid. She believed it, right? She's 13, she's going to Southside Chicago. She's tutoring her kids. She's understanding what poverty and redlining does. She takes that after getting married to West Virginia, organizes around brown and black lung, and ends up in Andy Young's administration, befriends Jean Charles Young, his late wife, still believes in equality, believes in equity, believes in pushing, is literally trained on organizing from people like James Orange, who was a political lieutenant essentially of Dr. King. And when I met her, my first thought was, and she says, hey, she has her and all these guys I know to be Crips and GDs around her, because they go to school with me and DB. I'm like DJ is a Crip. I know he stole a car last week. I know he got a gun on him now. What is this white woman doing? And she says, I heard you speak. I was in a group called Black Teens for Advancement. She said, I'd like for you to come advise us on something we're doing. And they were putting together a series. And her now, I know the guys with me and Degani Kuchwayo. Degani is a Nigerian kid who went to Mays. It was our rival, went to Douglas. We said, man, we're going to go check out what this white lady talking about. Because she with some gangsters. So I know she not no sucker. I'm just like, I'm like, I know he stole a car. And we go, and she says some of the most radical things I'd ever heard in my life. I heard her tell a group of adults that we will not organize for children. We organize with children, because that's who we're organizing for. You cannot organize for people if you're not organizing with people. I can't organize for the poor if I'm not with the poor. I can't organize for the disenfranchised if I'm not with the disenfranchised, because the disenfranchised have to be the organizers. You don't know what poverty is if you ain't been poor. See, our neighborhood, we was the working class kids. We was poor. We couldn't get all the jobs. Now, he was only child. I'm gonna tell you, he had the video game central. Shouts out to my friend. But my cousins in the projects didn't have nothing. And I understood poverty will never be solved by people outside the impoverished. Because people outside the impoverished are always gonna keep their self-interest. But those that are in the muck, in the mire, in the depths of poverty, if you're not organizing with them, you're not organizing for them. That's something I've understood since I was 15 years old. That's something I understand to this very day. And that's why I'm very respectful to tell people I consult with organizers. I take my advice, I listen, but I'm a mobilizer. I show up, I know people gonna show up either to sing and dance or to hear stuff. But the organizers, the people who do what my grandmother did, who get together every Tuesday, every Thursday, after church, who's hungry? How can we feed them? Who's been hurt? How can we help them? These are the most valuable people in any community. And these people should be telling us what to do. And we should be doing it. So I guess the wisest thing that I've heard was said by Miss Alice Johnson. You do not organize for people. You organize with people. For that is organizing for people. That's it.
And on that, ladies and gentlemen, Michael Render.